What if Robb Stark and Blackfish told Edmure of their plans? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Riverrun is live with activity as they prepare for the King in the North's final departure. Rather than try to starve out Tywin and Harrenhal, he has come up with a daring plan to force him out. Robb and his men will ride west into the Lannister domains and attack them. Tywin would either have to confront Robb or risk a mutiny amongst his men. Either way, it will give them a chance to destroy them. It is a good plan, but also a risky one. They know if Tywin takes the bait, it leaves their lands exposed to retaliatory raids. That is why Robb calls Edmure to discuss the strategy.
Uncle, you know that Ser Brynden and I intend to ride west with the Northmen and the Freys. While we are gone, you are in command of Riverrun. Ensure that it does not fall into Lannister hands.
I understand. You can be sure that no lion crosses the Red Fork unless they are in chains.
No, Uncle. Crossing the Red Fork is exactly what we hope Tywin Lannister will do. We are not attacking his lands because we hope to hold it or to seize territory for ourselves, but to lure Tywin out of his hiding. He cannot ignore his lands being burned and will ride out with all his strength. From there, I hope to confront him in the west, or at least keep him trapped between our two hosts.
A daring plan, Your Grace. But if he does leave Harrenhal, he may try to burn everything from Red Fork to the Golden Tooth in retaliation.
That is where you come in, my nephew. You must ensure we can return to the Westerlands, but check him on his march. Keep your army ready to shadow his forces and strike at him when the opportunity arises, but do not let him lay siege to any castles or seize any territory.
You ask much of me, Your Grace, but I will see it done.
The two men nod and prepare to ride out, confident that Edmure can get the job done now that he knows what to expect. The young knight of Riverrun also studies this plan, and he must admit it is a good one. If done right, it could swing the balance of the war in their favor, although that is a big if. As Robb and his Northmen ride out, Edmure sends word to his riverlords and informs them of this plan. Many are off retaking their lands, but he tells them to keep their armies close and prepare for a possible Lannister attempt to escape. He says that if it should happen, they must assemble a Riverrun to confront them as a single army. Soon enough, they receive word that Robb and his army have managed to sneak past the Golden Tooth and scatter the army protecting the pass. This alone would be a huge blow, as the army was meant to join Tywin and give him strength to retake lost territory in the Riverlands. Without that, the Westerlands are completely vulnerable. Soon enough, Robb and his army begin their rampage. They capture several castles, including the Crag, Ashmark, and the Golden Tooth, wiping out what little resistance there is to stop them. At the same time, his lords begin raiding, seizing gold mines, cattle, and grain to feed their army. Just as expected, there is something the Westermen and Harrenhal cannot ignore. Every day, lords petition Tywin to march home and crush the Stark army. At first, the Lord of Castle Rock refuses them. He instead writes letters to the lords back home to raise whatever men they have and defeat him. But this is easier said than done. They have no core of veterans to rally around, and most of the lords who did not want to fight were scattered during the Battle of the Oxcross. If they did not want to fight, it would take weeks before they could raise and train an army. Some of Tywin's advisors point out how Robb only commands 6,000 men, while the rest of his force is hiding in the Twins. If he is to attack them now, Tywin can end the war in a single stroke by defeating Robb Stark. After that, it would be easy enough to force the Riverlands to submit. Reluctantly, his army marches back west at full speed, aiming to reach the region before Robb can do much damage. When word reaches Edmure, he soon sends out ravens to all his bannermen, urging them to assemble their levies in Riverrun as they commanded. Soon, the Eagle of Mallister, Horse Bracken, Tree of Blackwood, and Dancing Maiden of Piper are just one among the dozen houses that answer Edmure's calls. He places Lord Vance in charge of checking Tywin's advance. While he is told to let them cross, Lord Carl is also instructed to get a show of fighting to prevent rousing Lannister suspicion. They block all the fjords with archers and knights who rain arrows across the Lannister forces when they try to cross. Yet, when Ser Gregor is sent out to force an opening, that is exactly what happens. The rivermen seem to break and scatter in the winds. In reality, this is a carefully organized retreat. By the time the reserve army arrives, it appears as though they are too late, so Edmure simply pulls back his forces and shadows them. Though outnumbered by almost 2 to 1, the Knight of Riverrun does not let them escape his sight. His raiders are under the command of Lord Blackwood and Sir Mark. Both these men harass the Lannister line wherever they go, hitting their flanks and ambushing their scouts. If Tywin tries to lay siege to a castle, an armored column comes riding out to confront them and pushes them back on the march. Soon enough, the Westermen reach the Golden Tooth, bloodied but largely intact, and the Riverlords stop their pursuit, happy to see them go. A cheer rises from the riverfolk, who all tell each other that now Tywin has entered the jaws of the wolf. Edmure is among those who celebrate this success and calls for the Raven to be sent to Robb, telling him that it is his turn to crush the Lannisters. Days later, the king in the north receives a letter from Edmure informing him of Tywin's movements. He responds by sending out raiders to help the Lannisters gauge their positions. The Lannister scouts under Sir Adam soon take these men back to the main Stark camp. Robb stands at the edge of the clearing, his cloak billowing in the wind as the first rays of dawn pierce the canopy. The trees behind him are dense, old, and unwelcoming, perfect for what he intends. Before him lies a wide forest mouth that narrows sharply into a bottleneck, framed by ravines and thick underbrush. It's here, in this natural choke point, that the king makes his stand. He raises his hand, and men move with practiced precision. Logs are hauled into place, barricades lashed together with rope and spikes. Archers nestle into concealed ridges, hedges, and trees away from the path, while pikemen and shield bearers dig into narrow trenches below. The banners of the direwolf flutter among the trees, half hidden but defiantly placed.
This is where we hold them. Let them come hungry for vengeance. We'll feed them steel and fire.
To the flanks, the Blackfish leads a column of light horse and scouts along hidden deer trails, snaking through the hills with deadly silence. The Great John rides further west, circling the enemy force with a wide arc, and with a mix of Northmen and Frey outriders. They are hidden behind hedges and tree lines. Their task is clear: hit Tywin's rear the moment he commits to the valley. And Tywin does commit. The Lannister army pours into the open terrain with a methodical pace, banners raised and armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. Tywin starts by having his archers bombard the Stark positions. The Northmen return fire, and an archery duel ensues. However, in terms of numbers and quality, the Lannisters are unmatched. The only problem is that the shelters the Stark created blunt their effectiveness. Seeing this attack floundering, Tywin orders his pikemen forward. The knights dismount and support their flanks with swords, maces, and axes. As they advance, they move under a wall of pikes and push through the Northmen's defenses. While the barricades offer some protection against the slow-moving infantry who can maneuver around them, it is less effective. And with heavily armored knights supporting them, the western men-at-arms begin to break through. They are immediately confronted by Robb, who stands alongside Black Walder, Galbert Glover, and Maid Mormont. They rally the men and have them continue holding the lines against the Lannister advance. Together they cut through enemy soldiers who get in their way, but the numbers are against them. They are outnumbered by nearly 5-1 and lack the heavy equipment of the Westermen. At some points, the only thing that saves them is Robb's leadership as he rallies the faltering lines. And in turn, the only thing that saves him is his elite battle guard. Yet they cannot fully fight against the numbers, and they watch the army advance, pushing them away from their barricades and into the forest behind. But as the Lannisters push into the narrowing valley, something shifts. The flanks come alive. From the left, Blackfish's men strike hard, falling upon the Lannister rearguard with fire and axe. On the right, the Great John barrels into the rear, horns screaming and swords flashing in the golden light. Panic spreads down the Lannister line as messengers are cut off and orders are drowned in chaos. At their side, Grey Wind roars and scatters the horses, sending them galloping across the lines, adding further chaos. The Mountain tries to rally the men and personally duels with Greatjon. The two giants clash on horseback, whirling back and forth as their swords flash. When they lock again, the two giants growl and trade blows. With a shove, Greatjon pushes the Mountain back, but then takes a sword blow across the chest. Still, the armies gallop past him and hit Robb's rear. Seeing this, Lord Umber grins and spurs his horse forward, hacking at his side. The Mountain's plate absorbs this blow, but not Greatjon's shoulder ram that knocks him off his saddle. Sir Gregor tumbles to the ground. He pulls Lord Umber, and the two grapple in the mud, barely dodging horses and taking clumsy strikes at one another. Greatjon feels another cut on his side when the Mountain's breastplate is denting by his opponent's sword pommel. This sends him reeling, and the Greatjon takes his chance. He drives his sword into the Mountain's battered breastplate and pierces it entirely. It drives right into his heart and leaves Sir Gregor gasping as he drowns in his own blood. In the meantime, the rest of the Lannister army breaks as his force smashes through the rear and leaves the attackers trapped and overwhelmed.
Push forward! For the north!
Tywin tries to rally his center, barking orders, but the sounds are all lost in the chaos. Sir Kevin is unhorsed, and men are bunched up with many unable to use their weapons. By nightfall, the once proud Lannister vanguard is shattered. Only the disciplined rearguard holds and escapes, but they are not in a position to challenge the north again. Robb watches him go, his face hard and unreadable. But while they clear up the battlefield and prepare to continue their operations, things in the east are taking a turn for the worse among the Lannisters. Not only had Robb's attack forced Tywin to defend his home territory, but it also deprived the capital of its main army. Now that Stannis has gained the Stormland army, he begins his attack on the capital. His attacks are halted for a while thanks to Tyrion and his wildfire, but this is only a temporary solution, as they had expected Tywin to arrive with reinforcements. But with their father dead and his army scattered in the Westerlands, that hope for relief is out the window. Their only hope now is the Tyrells, who had declared for Renly but refused to bend the knee to Stannis. They even sent Littlefinger to try and convince them to secure an alliance. At first, Loras was open to this idea and was eager to avenge Renly. Yet, when news arrives that Tywin Lannister is dead, things change. They are now less certain about the Lannisters' chances of victory and hesitate. Mace sends ravens and tells them that they are not to relieve King's Landing. Rather, they are to arrive after the battle is taken and to free any of Stannis' men they capture. In their place, they will provide Littlefinger as a prisoner to show their dedication to his cause. Though Loras is furious at the idea of having to betray Renly's memory, Lords Rowan and Randall Tarley ensure that these orders are carried out. Without the aid of the Reach, King's Landing is doomed. As soon as the wildfire wears off, Stannis begins his assault again. A few sorties slow his progress, but none of it can change anything, as the defenders soon break, and a breach is formed. The men rush through the ruined mudgate, slaughtering anyone wearing a red cloak. Tyrion is among those who fall, being slain by one of the Kingsguard while Joffrey attempts to flee. He is picked up by a group of knights who bring him before them, alongside Cersei. Both of them are executed, and Stannis claims the city as his own. The Tyrells prove that hedging their bets was the right move, and soon arrive a few days later with Littlefinger in tow. They present him before Stannis, who regards them coldly. He listens to their story, claiming how it was their full intention to join his army after Renly had perished. It was just that the confusion in their camps delayed their departure.
And yet you declared for my brother when fighting first broke out. You even married your daughter to him. Do you think I'm a fool, Lord Mace? You were my brother's bannerman, and you only served because of your ambition, because you had nothing to gain from working with me. You were right there, because I do not reward traitors and flatterers.
Your Grace, I admit my reason, and if you see fit to punish me, I will gladly accept it. But surely you cannot deny the merit of the gift I bring you. Lord Baelish is a valuable prize, one worthy of consideration. Besides, there are far worse foes still out there. I hear Robb Stark is still at large.
You are at least partially correct there, my lord. Other threats must be dealt with first. And who is worse? I suppose that remains to be seen. But perhaps you might have your chance to prove yourself.
Anything, Your Grace, and you shall find no more loyal servant than Mace Tyrell.
Very well then. It would be unacceptable if Robb Stark were to take control of the Westerlands and all their gold. That is why you must retake it for me. And perhaps there you can prove which is worse, an honorable foe or a treacherous ally.
Mace bristles at that insult, but says nothing. He simply bows and moves to begin organizing his army. He can raise 10,000 men immediately, more than Robb Stark and more than the Lannisters. If given the chance to build his strength, he can increase that army by many thousands more. Yet Mace does not wait. He knows he's on thin ice. He must get results quickly if he is to salvage this situation. His army soon storms to the Westerlands, capturing Craighall and several southern houses with ease. They gather the surviving Westerners and offer to help them retake their homes from the Northmen. Seeing that Tywin is dead and Joffrey no longer sits on the Iron Throne, the surviving Westerlands opt to make peace with Stannis and join the Tyrell army. They gather what surviving men they have and move on a campaign of vengeance to crush the Northmen. Despite that, they do not encounter Robb Stark and his army. Though their position seems strong, the king in the north is more vulnerable than many things. The capture of his home requires him to turn back north and abandon his campaign. Worst of all, without other threats, Stannis can now turn his full attention on him. Robb makes some offers of peace, but Stannis has all the cards. He sees that Robb's army is bloodied, his power base is in disarray, and most importantly, he still has Sansa, now his heir. Stannis is in little mood to be conciliatory, and accepts nothing short of total surrender. Yet Robb is not in a position to accept that. His army is still flush from their victory against Tywin, and have not lost a single battle. To them, there is no point in surrendering as they are not the losers. If he tries to make peace, it will make Robb appear weak. He knows he needs to get some bargaining power, but most of all, he needs to recapture Winterfell. Robb devises a new strategy. He has reinforcements brought from the Riverlands to attack Castle Rock. Although it is a formidable castle, it lacks any hope of relief or strong leader to secure its keep, and falls after a brief siege, with Brynden Tully made its castellan. At the same time, Robb marches on Lannisport, which also lacks suitable leadership. He manages to forge a deal with the Lannisters of Lannisport. They shall be allowed to remain their rulers if they accept a garrison of 1,000 men and hand over the fleet to Robb. Seeing little other choice, they agree, and Robb takes this fleet to sail north with his people, while the riverfolk are tasked with holding these two strongholds and whatever else they can. When Mace at last reaches the northern parts of the Westerlands, he finds the Blackfish ready to confront him. The wily old knight wages a guerrilla war, striking and disappearing into the hills while these two strongholds are supplied by Seaguard. He cannot hope to hold only the riches of the West, but he can at least deny Stannis his crown jewel. Thankfully, the campaign in the north proves to be far easier. Even with most of the armies still on the wrong side of the neck, Robb and his veterans easily drive back the Ironborn, as they only manage to secure a few isolated castles. These are recaptured one by their very lords, who know of the lands far better. The last to fall is Moat Cailin, which did not expect an attack from the north side, or a naval strike by the captured Lannister fleet. This opens the pathway for Roose Bolton and his host to return north, securing Robb's position back there. Even after Winterfell is recaptured, he wastes no time in rebuilding it. As the last of the Ironborn longships are burned, many lords urge Robb to return south and secure his position in the Riverlands just as Stannis finishes his conquest of the Westerlands. Though he is unable to capture Lannisport or Castle Rock, the rest of the lords pledge fealty to him, and he turns his gaze on the Riverlands. However, Robb is unable to do that as he receives word of a wildling army marching on the wall. He cannot ignore them after nearly losing the north, and with Roose's army joining with his, he manages to march them towards the wall. No one knows this, but Robb has also had his reasons to go there. Though he holds the north, he lacks an heir. Even if he reports to Lord Manderley that the claim that Bran and Rickon are not dead, it still only leaves Sansa as his immediate blood relative. Yet Robb dares not trust her to rule, fearing that she is compromised. That only leaves one valuable heir, his bastard brother Jon, who is now serving the Night's Watch. Catelyn tries to dissuade Robb, but the king is not convinced. And while the army marches, he also drafts his will and prepares a declaration. When they arrive at the wall, they find it in chaos. They knew the Night's Watch was in a sorry state, but the recent Rangers and the Wilding attack had depleted what little strength they had left. Robb arrives to find Castle Black half a ruin. The gates of Castle Black groan as they swing open. Robb Stark rides in at the head of his host, Grey Wind pacing beside him, sniffing the blood-soaked air. Around him, men whisper at the ruin. The wall towers overhead like grave markers, casting a cold shadow over the burned-out remains of the castle. Crows pick at the corpses. Smoke clings to the charred rafters. Some structures were burned down. The dead litter the floor. The blood cakes the snow and the stone. Those who live are primarily crippled, old men and green boys. Yet among them is Jon Snow, who has taken command of the defenders. He managed to hold back the wildlings for long enough for the northern reinforcements to arrive. As the dire wolf of House Stark flies in the distance, men cheer in celebration, but the man who greets them is not Jon. Instead, it is Sir Alistair Thorne.
Your Grace, you arrived too late. The worst is past.
Tell me what happened.
They came in the thousands. Wildlings, giants, mammoths, savages with obsidian blades. We held, barely. Lost over half the garrison, and most of our provisions. Your brother rode beyond the wall, lived among them, even lay with one of their women. And when he returned, he took command of the castle as if nothing had happened.
You arrested him for turning against the people you claimed he's joined?
For treason. The Night's Watch is sworn to guard the realm of men. Jon Snow forgot that oath. He returned with wildling blood on his hands and in his heart. We could not trust him.
He endangered us all. I voted to hang him. Still do. And yet the wall still stands. Who commanded the defense?
Snow did.
But that will be enough.
He walks through the ruined castle, past wounded brothers and smoking beams, until he reaches the ice cells below. There, beneath flickering torchlight, Jon Snow kneels in chains. His face is haggard, eyes rimmed red with exhaustion and loss. But he stands when Robb enters. The two men face each other. Brothers once, strangers now.
You held the wall. Barely. We would have all died for nothing if you hadn't arrived. They say you spoke with them. I lived with them, ate with them, bled beside them. They weren't coming to conquer. Not all of them. They were running. From something far worse.
Robb listens in silence as Jon recounts the horrors beyond the wall. White shadows that move in silence. Corpses that rise in the snow. A king in the forest with eyes like frozen stars. He speaks of Craster's Keep, of the White Walkers' growing army, and the massacre at the Fist of the First Men.
They're coming, Robb. And it doesn't matter who sits the Iron Throne if the dead take the world. I believe you. But first, we deal with his army.
When he returns to the courtyard, Thorn and Slint are waiting with sharpened words and demands.
He's confessed to desertion and fraternizing with the enemy. It's treason. You must hang him. No. I am the king in the north, and I will not execute the man who held this wall while the rest of you watched it fall. Jon Snow is no traitor. But if you will not have him, then I shall take him.
You will what? Your Grace, he is a man of the Night's Watch. He took his vows.
And he's broken them, as you all seem to enjoy reminding me. His vows are meaningless since he cannot be allowed to return. But he is still used to me.
Broken or not, they were spoken. That means he belongs to the Night's Watch.
I will personally oversee the rebuilding of Castle Black and the re-garrisoning of the Night's Watch. The North owes its survival to the Wall, and I will not see it fall. In exchange, I want Jon Snow. Tell me, Sir Alistair, is my price reasonable?
Yes, Your Grace. It is.
Then, with that, the Northmen join the battle properly, and the battle that follows is one-sided. Many of the free folk were expecting an easy win. They know that the Night's Watch was on the ropes and on the verge of falling, but when the cavalry first rides out, they see they are sorely mistaken. Mance sees their armies streaming out and tries to organize the army as best he can. He forms a spear wall and tries to organize a charge of mammoths, yet these efforts are in vain. The wildlings struggle to organize themselves and are slow to build their forces. They are driven back by the first charge. Though the mammoths and the giants hold back the north for a time, they fight less as a unit and more as individual warriors. This prevents them from organizing a proper counterattack. They cannot hold back the Northmen, who effortlessly run down the wildling army. All they manage to do is help Mance evade capture. He escapes with thousands of free folk, leaving the Night's Watch with a victory. Just as the dust settles, Robb wastes no time in declaring Jon as his heir. He has this done in front of all the lords, as well as repeating everything that Jon told Robb to them. The reaction is mixed, to say the least. Umbers, Mormonts, and the mountain clans all grumble at the prospect of letting wildlings through, but others like the Manderleys and Boltons are open to the idea. To give them assurances that nothing bad will happen, Jon personally pledges to watch over the wildlings and ensure they follow the laws. With Robb's popularity, it helps win them over.
You know the wildlings better than anyone. Find Mance Rayder. Bring him back. If he wants peace, I will grant it. He and his people may settle in the Gift, under northern protection, but they will fight alongside us when the dead come. I'll find them.
And so, while ravens fly and hammers ring, Jon Snow rides north to the Wall once more, not as a brother of the Watch, but as a bridge between worlds. He does not find Mance, but Mance finds him. Jon is nearly killed by the wildlings, who are eager for some sort of revenge after their defeat. However, Jon manages to convince Mance of these terms, granting them land just as they wanted. However, they must do so under northern terms. They will not have to kneel, but they must help defend their new lands, whether they be from the White Walkers or other foes. As the first band of wildlings arrive, lands are set up for them in the Gift. They are settled there where Jon helps them establish villages, learning to farm their lands. It is a difficult position and will take some time before they are truly able to take up arms against anyone. While that is going on, the war continues in the south. Taking the north proves difficult, but Stannis begins his invasions of the Riverlands, which is far less able to defend itself. With the Westerlands largely secure, a portion of the Reach army continues to besiege Lannisport and Castle Rock, while Mace takes the bulk of his army through the Golden Tooth and strikes from there. Meanwhile, Loras Tyrell and Randall Tarly move from the Reach directly, and at last, Stannis moves from the Crownlands with a Stormlander army. With the Riverlands already weakened from the war and facing an army from the three sides, they are badly exposed. Within weeks, several major castles are taken along the borders, leaving them on the back foot. The combined Riverfolk army is unable to halt every army at once. They score some minor victories, but Edmure struggles to move them where they are needed. As each time they halt one advance, another side makes progress. The Blackfish remains trapped in Castle Rock, unable to provide them any aid. This leaves only Robb Stark as their source of reinforcements. With the wildlings not yet ready for war, this leaves only the Northmen to come to their aid. The smoke of battle hangs low over the Red Fork, where the Northmen checked an advancing Lannister army. Robb rides hard along the embankment, Grey Wind padding beside him, as the army rests and cleans their weapons after battle. Another skirmish, another day of blood. They win, for now. Robb and Edmure both try their best to hold the tide, but it is an uphill battle. Every day, one more of the armies advances deeper into the Riverlands, which are already devastated and unable to hold them back. With Robb, they at least get a few other victories, halting Stannis in Maidenpool, or Loras Tyrell at Acorn Hill. These are great victories, but they also secure some stunning losses, like when Randyll Tarly manages to secure a crossing in the Red Fork, or when Stannis captures the Salt Pans with the remnants of his navy. This leaves them in an increasingly smaller area to defend as they are pushed back. These areas find themselves becoming a wasteland, and are choked by weary men and wounded horses. The Lannister host, swollen with recruits and remnants from the Westerlands, presses relentlessly. Though Tywin is dead, Mace Tyrell takes command alongside Sir Adam Marbrand. Each victory Robb scrapes is harder than the last. In the south, Loras Tyrell and Randyll continue to push relentlessly, shrugging off their losses and advancing. Stannis moves a bit more cautiously, but each time he strikes, the battles are the hardest fought.
We can't hold them forever. They push deeper every week. The fjords, the woods, they take them from us one by one.
Robb says nothing. His eyes scan the horizon, where no reinforcements come. The Blackfish remains trapped behind the walls of Castle Rock, besieged and cut off. The wildlings, still organizing under Jon's uneasy leadership in the north, are not ready for open war. That leaves only the Northmen, and they are tired, so Robb sends out the Ravens. Far to the south, in the sunlit towers of Sunspear, letters arrive wrapped in the direwolf seal. Doran Martell unrolls them with slow, deliberate care. His fingers tighten as he reads.
Justice, Stannis preaches it, but it was Ned Stark who defied Robert and spoke openly of Ellia's murder. It was we who brought the lion low, and it was the great Jon Umber who slew the mountain. It was we who reached out to offer you an alliance, not Stannis.
As he reads this, Oberyn leans forward, fire in his eyes.
It was Stannis who preaches justice, yet he courts those same Reach Lords that bowed before Tywin, and the Westermen who cheered Tywin's murder of our kin.
Send word to the mountain passes. We begin raids at once. Strike into the Stormlands and Reach. Let them know that Dorne has not forgotten.
Far above the deserts of Dorne, in the mountains of the moon, Lady Catelyn Stark sits with her sister. Lysa Arryn looks older than she remembers. Thin, pale, but still wary, clutching little Robin Arryn as if the world means to steal him. At first, she speaks only of grievance, of the Vale's safety, of how no army has ever breached the Bloody Gate. But Catelyn leans forward, voice sharp as winter's wind.
Stannis meant to take Robin from you. Foster him, raise him as a ward in Dragonstone, I have heard. Remember what that means. He may try to demand him again, as a show of fealty.
Lysa's lips tighten. She glances at the boy who is playing with a wooden falcon.
Help us, Lysa. With your knights and your mountains, we can hold the Riverlands. You would not only preserve your son's rule, but ensure that the Vale shapes the realm's future.
The Vale will fly, but I want assurances. Robin stays in the Eyrie. He stays with me.
By the moon's turn, the Knights of the Vale descend. They sweep down the mountain paths, banners high, throwing back Stormlander outriders and stabilizing the Riverlands. With their arrival, the constant retreat halts. Castles no longer fall. Roads are held again. Even the Tully banners wave higher. They provide much-needed soldiers, and this allows them to launch counterattacks against the advancing armies. From Sunspear, Dornish raiders strike deep into the Reach and the Stormlands, pillaging the marches and lighting fires. Supply lines fray. Loyal lords send panicked ravens, pulling back some armies to reinforce their local positions. The king's grip weakens, as his army is weakened by the threat to their rear. This exposes a weakness in Stannis' army, as his rule of the Seven Kingdoms is not as solid as he claims. There are issues with the Sparrows, who preach against him, and while their influence is limited, the longer the war drags on, the greater their threat grows. In Riverrun's hall, Robb sits once more at the War Council. Around him, Northmen, Riverlords, and the Knights of the Vale study maps and prepare for their final encounter. The situation is still far from ideal, although they are still far outnumbered, as they can muster around 45,000 men at best. Stannis can muster close to 65,000. Now with fresh men and sturdy armor from the Vale, they launch counterattacks. Small but precise strikes hammer into their flanks of Stannis' advancing columns, breaking his rhythm. Forces from Maidenpool, Wayfarer's Rest, and Acorn Hall push out, reclaiming lost ground inch by inch. In the south, Dornish raiders ride fast and burn fast. They strike deep into the Reach and the Stormlands, pillaging keeps, seizing grain, and vanishing before a proper defense can form. The marches go up in flames, supply lines fray, lords begin calling banners home to protect their lands, weakening Stannis' unified force. Still, the threat remains overwhelming. Inside Riverrun's Great Hall, candlelight flickers against maps soaked in ink and sweat. Robb stands at the head of the table. Around him gather the grim faces of his bannermen, Great John Umber, Lord Blackwood, Edmure, and the Lords of the Vale.
45,000 men to face 65,000. Not counting whatever fools Stannis calls up from the Crownlands next. I must admit, it is a difficult situation. Then we need to get more men. We've bought time. It is now time the wildlings join us to fight.
He sends ravens not just to Jon, but also to Lord Manderley, who has a fleet prepared to transport them south. Stannis, unaware of what stirs in the frostbitten heights of the north, presses his advantage. He lashes out with fury, aiming to end the war. His generals push east and north, driving Robb into a defensive shell. Each time Robb draws a line in the earth, Stannis breaks it. He somehow finds a new fjord or a way to outflank his army. Some whisper this is thanks to the aid of Melisandre. Smaller battles erupt across the Trident. At the inn at the crossroads, Robb's riverlords hold, barely. At Fairmarket, Northmen are forced to burn the bridge to prevent encirclement. At Seaguard, Lannister loyalists try to open up the port for a naval push, but the Vale's archers repulse them. Yet they are slowly pushed deeper until Robb is forced to make his headquarters in the Twins. Robb digs in. The Freys, uneasy but too afraid to rebel openly. Robb orders trenches dug, palisades raised. But now even the wounded man fights. Every Northman, every knight of the Vale, every Riverlander knows this could be the end. While the Dornish continue to raid their flanks, they are too far away to send aid. All they can do is try to tie down as many as they can, and yet it does not stop Stannis from advancing. The sky is slate gray, and a bitter wind cuts across the fields as Stannis and his men begin their advance. He moves cautiously, sending his less reliable Westermen and Reach soldiers to storm the trenches. They come with planks of wood and other material to fill the gaps. Some manage to leap over, sprinting amidst the storm of arrows. There they come into the waiting blades of the Northmen. A ferocious clash begins as they lock shields and try to force their way through, only to be met by the ferocity of the Great John, whose great sword sweeps across them and blunts their charge. It is a struggle that swings back and forth and keeps the men occupied. He is joined by Rickard Karstark, Jason Mallister, and Sir Hosteen, along with their strongest warriors, as a shock unit that throws them back. The grizzled Northmen and Rivermen clash with the Reach Knights in gleaming armor, and Westermen in burnished gold. Robb rides the lines, sword raised, shouting orders as the Freys reluctantly open the gates to allow regrouping. The defenders hold for hours, but by sunset, the outer defenses buckle. Meanwhile, the Valemen try to lead a cavalry charge to strike at Stannis' flanks, but the king is waiting, and he has his western spears ready, followed by longbowmen and crossbowmen that blunt this charge, allowing his Reach cavalry to sweep in and strike their flank. With that, the men regroup in the Twins. As the days ensue, fighting continues to rage as Robb leads sorties. With Greywind at his side, he barrels out and strikes where Stannis least expects it. There, he cuts down several prominent knights, but this only delays the inevitable. In the following days, their outer defenses collapse, and fighting spreads onto the walls as siege towers are pulled forward. Here, the battered armies struggle to hold them back. Their losses grew, and soon people began to desert. Yet, strange rumors flutter into the Baratheon camp, of ships landing behind their flanks in salt pans. They bear the sigil of House Manderley. Stannis sends men to investigate, but they never return. For days there has been silence, and some brush it off as simple rumor meant to frighten them. What they don't know is that they are wildlings, trained, and that Jon had systematically had them wipe out entire contingents. Skin changers and wargs would disguise themselves and lead raiders into ambushes, while the army moved north, nearly 10,000 men, giants, and more. They make their way northward, and then unleash their horns, loud, ancient-sounding things, and the army emerges from the King's Road. At the head are giants. 10 feet tall and wreathed in furs and mail, they march with tree-trunk clubs and stone axes. Beside them rush wildlings, Thens, Hornfoots, Ice River clans, Skin Changers, and Spearwives. At their head is Jon Snow, black cloak tattered, Longclaw gleaming in his hand.
Charge! For the wall! For the north!
The wildlings crash into Stannis' rear like a hammer from the gods. While Stannis does manage to turn some men back to face them, it is not enough. These are not the same wildlings that were scattered beneath the wall. Many now sport mail under their furs and carry steel weapons. A few have been knighted. They managed to hold the lines against this attack, keeping them in check and preventing them from advancing into the Twins. Confusion tears through the enemy lines. Siege towers halt. Horns blow wildly as commanders try to wheel their men around. But the giants are unstoppable. One tears down a tower with his bare hands. Another crushes knights between a swinging club. They manage to break their lines, and from the Twins, Robb sees this.
For Winterfell! To me!
With the wildlings crashing the rear, Robb's force surging from the front, the field becomes a maelstrom. What was nearly a rout turns into a glorious charge. Stannis' center collapses under the weight of two armies. Horses scream, steel rings, fires consume the siege works. The king's banner disappears in the smoke. By midnight, the battlefield is quiet. The ground is soaked in blood. Survivors are pulled from the wreckage. Stannis' army is shattered, fleeing in every direction. The king himself is captured and brought before Robb, where he offers his head.
Go on then. Do your duty. But be ready to accept whatever responsibility comes after.
Robb nods and raises his sword. With a single swing, he takes his head. With the death of their king, the Iron Throne falls into chaos as they are left leaderless. Although Shireen is Stannis' heir, she is largely kept out of the public eye. She has little influence and would be used as a puppet. Melisandre and the Queen's men are quick to take advantage of this, but as is Ser Davos and his kingsmen, who also try to gain influence. Rather than leave the Iron Throne in disarray, the Northmen throw their support behind Davos, who favors peace with them. He frees the kingsmen who have been captured in the previous battles and sends them with wealth and weapons. At the same time, the Sparrows also rise up, attacking Queen's men and leaving them scattered. Even within the city, the Queen's men struggle to take control. In contrast, when Davos arrives, he is given a welcome by these Sparrows, who help him storm the Red Keep and arrest Queen Selyse and execute Melisandre. He serves as the Hand and begins brokering a peace with Robb. They agree to recognize their independence, along with that of the Riverlands. Dorne and the Vale are also granted concessions, and at last, peace descends in the Seven Kingdoms. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.